Hello, my name is Dino Veland, and today I'll be showing you how to use Python with the parallel stacks and parallel watch windows in Visual Studio 2012. The sample application which I'll be using today just downloads several different web pages, and then it'll run through them using Beautiful Soup to get the individual words, not the HTML tags, and then it'll build up word counts of each of the words that appear in all of the web pages. And then finally it output all of those words to the console. The actual downloading of the pages will be done on different threads, and we'll go and use Python's thread pool class to do this. So we'll end up submitting different downloads, and then as those complete, we'll end up submitting different tasks to the thread pool, which will run through and update the stats. Finally, after all of the stats have been collected for each of the individual web pages, we'll merge the stats into one large list of stats, which will be what we actually output. So to get going here, first I'm going to set a couple breakpoints that will hit while this is running, which will let us look around at the different parallel threads and the parallel watch windows while this is running. And so to get started, I'll just hit F5 and we'll launch into the debugger. So you can see here that I'm getting output from my program that's running as we start to download each of these individual web pages. And as those complete, we will see some more output, and we'll start to hit the breakpoints. So we've hit the first breakpoint here, and you can see that we're in download URL, and you can see that we have actually over here 6 different threads which are all in download URL. So these are all running off of the thread pool threads, which is why we have these bootstrap and run threads. And then we finally get to our method, which is actually running here, the download URL. And you can see here I can switch around from thread to thread. And if I come down here to my locals window as I do that, you can see that we are looking at the different downloading threads for each of the requests that we're running. We can also see that we have different threads in different locations. So while we have 6 threads that are in download URL, some of those are going off to write, which is then acquiring a lock. And so those are our threads that are actually doing this print done downloading here. Likewise, we can pop over here to the parallel watch window, and we can go ahead and enter in an expression that we'd like to look at inside of the watch window. And this will then run, and it'll run on all of the different threads that we have within our process. And you can see here I have one which is downloading Slashdot, one which is downloading Stack Overflow, one which is downloading Microsoft.com, and so on. And then I have some other threads which aren't actually inside of the download URL function here. So those are the threads that are doing the write, or my thread over here, which is actually waiting for the results still. And so I can see where this is defined and where it's not defined, and I get to see all of that view for all of my threads all at once, which is pretty nice. Meanwhile, we don't see much change in the parallel stacks view. We continue to see that we have all of these different threads which are running here, and we have our main thread which kicked everything off, and it's continuing to wait for the results. But now if I wanted to look at a different thread, I can actually start to use the parallel stacks view in order to do this. So here we can see all of the different threads that are blocked here. I can right click here, and I can go to switch to frame and choose a different thread to look at and inspect. So here I've just switched over to thread 5456, and we can see that I have some different variables over here. And again, I can come up here, switch to thread 3856, and we can see that this is the Stack Overflow page that I'm reading, and so on. So this will let me not only use the parallel watch view to kind of get an overview of what's going on, but then I can use the parallel stacks view in conjunction with that to really kind of drill down and look at the individual thread there. Okay, at this point I'm just going to clear my breakpoint and go ahead and step out of this function. And this will give us a slightly more interesting view here because we start getting a little bit of different setup with our threads. So now at this point we have only one thread which is left doing update stats. All of our other threads have stepped out. So you can kind of see how the tree view gets formed here, where we have 10 threads which are all shared by the thread pool and are all blocked or are all doing work. 2 of those threads are going into the run function, so those haven't completed yet. But again, they're just work in the thread pool. And one of those threads finally is still in update stats doing work. And then we still have 8 threads which are off on the thread pool hanging around and waiting if some additional work were to come into the thread pool. So as your tree kind of fans out, you get this sort of collapsed view from the bottom of the stack here, and then as things differentiate, you get this tree view, which really lets you give a nice high-level view of what's going on with your threaded program. And then again, we still have our one thread which is waiting for the result of all the parallel work here. Okay, so finally I'm going to go ahead and switch back to my parallel debugging sample app here and just put a final breakpoint here when everything has completed, and I'm just going to go ahead and let that finish. So in our output window, we can scroll down and we can see kind of all of the stats that we have here. So not too surprising, we have the as a very high count and some other common words that you'd see in English. And then we kind of drill down into the less common views. But we can also see that parallel stacks has now compressed down to a single thread, because that's the only thread that's remaining. The thread pool's gone. And we can see that our parallel watch is also down to a single thread. So that's an overview of both the parallel watch and the parallel stacks window. And hopefully this will help you with some of your debugging.